So CJ Stroud has pro day um, earlier today, and I made a video I think like about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago about why I would take Anthony Richardson with the number one overall pick, just due to raw potential, just due to all that, um, and I think part of me still would, just because you really can't miss out on that kind of potential, even though like he could be an epic failure. But I for me, I wouldn't want to miss out on that kind of potential. But now I'm making this video here to say I think it's a near guarantee that CJ Stroud goes number one to the Carolina Panthers. I see like very few ways where this doesn't go down. So I watched a little bit of the pro day today, a little bit of just what the gist of it was, what reporters were saying, what people have been saying about him. Obviously, did his throws look good? Do they look bad? So the first thing to be noted is that his throws looked insane. He showed a great deal of leadership through the whole thing. There wasn't a coach like Coach Day or like the quarterbacks coach or anybody. They didn't set the whole thing up. He set it up on his own. That's probably a tactic that they did to show teams that he's a leader, but nonetheless, still he led the entire thing by himself. From reports, all the throws were pretty much on the money. He showed that he can pretty much do everything at a above average level. Um, and obviously, there was 11 scouts from Carolina there. There was like 30 NFL teams there. I think Pete Carroll was there, uh, which that's rare that the head coach goes. So a lot of people were there, and the consensus that I heard from everybody was that they just love him as a prospect. Apparently, what's been going on is he's incredibly well spoken when it comes to these interviews, and they think that through his words he can be a great leader. And when people are saying that, when you have that ability off the field to lure teams, I looked at some of these reporters. I looked at some of the way these coaches are talking about CJ Stroud. He has them all convinced. Now, does he have me totally convinced? Yes and no. Yes and no. I think that he's a great prospect, and I think that he can be a really good quarterback in the league, maybe even a great quarterback. But I think a lot of it has to do with the system that he gets put in. That's the first thing. And Carolina, I think he'll do good in Carolina because Frank Wright, good offensive coach. Um, they've brought in some more weapons for him to be able to maneuver through there. They have a lot of draft capital. I think Carolina's a fine spot. But like if he were to go to like the Colts or the Texans, even though the Texans are having a good offseason, I think it would be too dysfunctional. Um, and I've watched a lot of CJ Stroud because obviously I'm an OSU fan. I watched endless clips of CJ Stroud, and what I'll say is I think he's got a great uh, accuracy of throwing the football, unbelievably great accuracy. Um, I think he can extend plays when he really needs to pretty well. But the issues that I have with him sometimes are sometimes he has a timidness, and with that timidness, sometimes it seems like he's not really aware of what he's doing, like his decision making. It sometimes seems off to me in certain levels. And what a good thing about that is when you have problems like that, usually age and experience helps that out. And obviously, he's come a long way in his early days in high school. He was not even really considered. He had very low offers until he somehow won the Elite 11, uh, which just shows his improvement. And if you look at the improvement from year one to year two, he was a much better quarterback. The first 5 weeks of the season, I thought he sucked. Like, he was bad. And, we got on him, and I think the OSU fan base got on him because his decision making was poor. Obviously, there was he back then he was afraid to extend plays. It looked like he was really focused on staying in the pocket. He wouldn't throw the ball. And obviously, people, what I like to see about him is people got on him and he actually improved. He made an effort to change, which is, anybody can, make a change. You have to make the effort to change. And I thought that was great that what he did. But yeah, that's the only thing that really scares me at the NFL level is obviously he's going to get in very high pressure situations. Obviously, you're going up in a game, and it depends. It's going to be shown, how does he perform in those situations. I could see him starting off pretty rocky. I could see him starting off with like a few like 3 interception games, and people are freaking out. Yeah, I could see that. I think it's going to take him some time. What I really would have liked is if he could have went to a team like where he could have maybe sat. Maybe there was a bridge in there. He could have sat for a few weeks because no matter where he goes out of any of these destinations, he's starting right off the bat. But I do like the Carolina destination for him. I think Frank Wright. I think he's a good offensive coach. I think he knows what he's doing. I mean, he took Carson Wentz and he had like an average year. Carson Wentz is like washed. And he was washed then too. So if he can do that, and that's pretty good. But it's looking like the consensus is looking like Stroud's going to go number 1 overall. And I'm not opposed to it. I don't think it's a bad thing that he is. I just think I think he's one of those quarterbacks. I think his biggest issue is the pressure when it comes to him. I think it's a mental game for CJ. But can he overcome it? Yeah. Would I take him number 1? Like I said, I like the potential and the upside of Richardson a lot. And I'm more of a risks guy. That's why I would do that. I think the safest guy to draft, CJ Stroud. Yeah, for sure. That's the safest guy to draft. Bryce Young just looks to be at this point. He's got that like wow factor. He's got that athleticism, playmaking abilities as well. But his height is just a concern. And you have to understand when you can't stay in the pocket, like he's not going to stay in the pocket. Bryce Young, he's not going to stay in the pocket in the NFL for that long. He's gonna extend plays. When it works, it looks great. It doesn't work that often. Like that's like an hectic. That's like you're living in chaos. Like what that is when you're extending. You want to be able to stay in the pocket to produce. And I don't know if like Kyler Murray. Sometimes it's like wow, and sometimes it's like oh, like that's what it is. And Will Levis, I don't really, I don't. Will Levis reminds me of kind of like the Zach Wilson thing to an extent. Obviously, the Zach Wilson thing was a lot worse. There's just not a lot of big game film with him. There's not a lot of accolades with him for me to give a proper like rating on him. I think through like the arm strength and the ability, I think he's a first round pick. I think it's bottom of the first round. He'll go like top 10, but definitely not number. I think he's off their list for number 1. I think this is between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. I don't think they want to take the risk with Richardson. Don't blame them. But I think it's pretty much a lock with what I've heard from people, what it looks like, how many people were at the pro day. I think it's pretty much safe to say CJ Stroud. And if you look at Vegas, like the betting favorite is for him to win it, for him to be the first overall pick. I think it's a lock that CJ Stroud's the first overall pick. How will he do? Obviously, I want him to do well, but only time will tell. Only time will tell.